Welcome to this video where I'll touch on a very asked for topic since it was mentioned in one of my previous videos.
The most important systems that we have for conflict resolution actually goes through play. And I think this is genius and something that could be adapted in society as a whole, so I will make a special video only for that.
That's right, today I'll explain one of the main practices we use in my community for conflict resolution that have allowed our community to be alive and still thriving for 50 years while also helping to grow the individuals of the community. It might be a little shocking for people, but in my community we take play and humor, being able to play 100% and laugh about ourselves, very seriously. We have even dedicated one of our main pillars, the institutions that keeps the whole community together, to play, and it's called the game of life. While using games and play in any organization or group context allows the members to know themselves better, while creating and stimulating closer relationships in the group. As said, it also tends to take outside of ourselves that we normally don't use in everyday contexts, which helps to create more integrated humans and also allows to cultivate new talents within the group.
Why do you think that playing is the best way for conflict resolution?
Oh, it takes out all the different parts of you. So the best, the worst, and so it's bringing attention to all the parts inside of us to know how to then confront them and work on the aspects that we need to work on.
Hello everyone and welcome to this video that many of you guys have asked for, which is the video where I will explain the number one element that we are using in my community in order to deal with conflict resolution. But before I enter into what that really looks like, it's important to state that this method is actually not primarily used as a method for conflict resolution. In reality, this method is used to allow the individuals of the community or of any group to really grow and to become aware of things within themselves, which then, as a consequence, allows us to deal with conflict in a better way. The method that I'm speaking about is the method of using play, competition, and game as a path towards self-awareness and conflict resolution. In my community, we take play very seriously because we know that it's a tool that really allows us to understand much more about ourselves and understand much more about life in general. The reason for this is that human beings actually learn so much more through playing than doing any other thing, which is seen in children. The problem with how our society is structured, though, is that at a certain age we are expected to stop playing. But in reality, play is something that we should continue doing throughout our life in order to know more about ourselves and to know more about the environment around us. So how is this method used practically in my community to resolve conflicts? Actually, one of the implementation of these methods is to create battles. And this sometimes seems like a paradox. So we are an intentional community trying to foster peaceful relationships with ourselves, with each other, and with the environment, and then we create battles. Why? Well, the reason for this is that when you live together with other people in a group, and that is not only in intentional communities, but when you're in contact with any kind of group in general, it's natural that tensions are formed, especially on a large scale. There's a tension that is formed through everyday life in between different subgroups. This is not wrong, this is human. And normally we deal with these things talking to each other, conversing, trying to understand what is your point of view, what is my point of view, how can we come to a middle ground. And this works to a certain extent. I don't say that we don't use this method of trying to resolve things through speaking. We have a lot of group meetings and family meetings and also one-on-one encounters with each other if we have some problems to deal with another person. But speaking about something does not always resolve things at a ground level, and the reason for this is that sometimes our speech is not so connected with our self-awareness. Only when we find ourselves in situations that are not everyday situations and in which we play, so it's not real, we actually take off a layer of the masks that we have on ourselves, and we can enter into parts of ourselves, integrate part of ourselves that we don't see and that we don't take out in our everyday life. This allows us to understand more about ourselves. It allows us also in a playful way and in a controlled context to release certain emotions that we build up naturally, like anger, competition, that in a normal context, when you're just speaking with someone, can feel completely out of context. So when we're having a battle, it's often because within the community, there are some kind of core tensions between different groups, and oftentimes this is actually between older people in the community and newcomers in the community. This is something that is very normal because it's not very easy to create a real generational shift within a community, and I've spoken about this in one of my other videos, that this is one of the core points to why communities doesn't grow, to why communities doesn't last very long, because there is the difficulty to integrate different generations. This is something that we can see on a large scale, even in society or in organizations or at workplaces, that people who have been there for a certain time, know the rules, know how things work, have a difficulty embracing newcomers who come with new ideas, new concepts, and new ways to change the structure of the organization. And this naturally creates tension. If this tension is not resolved, it oftentimes leads to people leaving the community, newcomers feeling that it's not even an idea to try to enter into the community because there's no space for them. So what happens when you create a context where these groups can play and compete with each other and get that tensions out is that first they actually meet each other on the playground in a completely different way than they have done before. So you're able to meet each other in a playful context where you take on completely different roles. And coming out of that everyday context, you see the others and also yourself in a completely different light. What we have seen in my community is that what happens after these battles, after these competitions, after this being together in a completely new way with each other, is that there is a union and there is new energy for new ideas, for new creativity to be born. And the gap that was existing between different subgroups or between different people doesn't exist anymore, because you have been allowed to let those emotions out and then been able also to laugh at yourself and laugh together with the other people. So every time after battle in my community, there's a huge sense of union and closeness between the people. Another way that we get these energies out is that every year in the summertime we have our Olympian Games in my community, which divides us into different teams depending on the regions. This again allows us to meet in a playful way, in a way of competition, and also in a physical way many times. So you meet people and you get to know people in a completely different light. And we have many other occasions during the year in which we use play to release these kind of emotions, to meet each other in new ways and to learn something new about ourselves. To make a personal example of how playing in this way really has allowed me to become self-aware about aspects that I didn't see before, was that when I started playing in this way from an adult point of view, first of all I realized that I was not playing at all that much in my life, and I was not used to being in those kind of contexts, so I actually felt a little bit uncomfortable. And I realized that I was a really bad loser, and the fear of losing something actually blocked me from playing 100%, because I had a mindset of, okay, but if I don't get too involved, then I won't get too touched either by the fact of losing, if that is the case. And when I saw this tendency in these games with myself, I started self-analyze, and I saw that even in my life, I was using the same mindset for almost everything in my life, and I had been doing so since my school years. So the sense of not giving 100%, of not really working and fighting for something that was important for me, to win at something, for something that was a goal, I instead just played half. I just played 50%, or not even that. And of course, I never arrived to the results that I wanted, but still I was able to rationalize it with myself, saying, okay, but it was because I didn't play fully. And I think that is something that is very human. The fear of giving so much energy to something, it's so vulnerable to play 100% and to be so raw and completely put yourself out there, as you do when you decide to go full on to play 100%. and then to lose. I realized that that was something that was so scary for me because it would damage my self-image. Then I realized that the reason why that would damage my self-image was due to the fact of being conditioned from school, from our culture, to feel that when you fail, you fail. And there's nothing to do about that. You are on the bottom, you didn't succeed. But in reality, we should be taught the truth, which is that failing is a step towards succeeding. So only when you embrace your failures, and I love Lisa Nichols, who's a great speaker, that says that she fails forward. That is a way to say that when you fail, you actually move forward in learning something that will allow you to succeed the next time. And that realization is something that has had a huge impact on how I behave, on how I interact with life after that realization. And also embracing myself when I fail, telling myself that it's okay to lose. Doesn't mean that you're a loser. It just means that you need to stand up and do better next time. Learn from that. It's a huge lesson. That is a richness. You won a lesson. You won something to learn. And if we continue to grow, then you are always successful. Life is about learning who we are, discovering what life is about, what our talents are, what we can really accomplish when we don't limit ourselves and just stop the first time we find a closed door, the first time we fail. And this is only one personal example from one individual. Imagine implementing this way of life, what it really does for people and what it does for people in a group context, how you really learn to see each other in a completely new light. It's natural that this creates a union, that this allows for a more fertile ground where conflict doesn't arise. And when you start feeling this tension, when you start feeling a distance between people, when you start feeling that inside of you, well, then you play again. And I think that this concept could be embraced not only by intentional communities, but by any organization. And recently it's been found how effective this is also to create a burst of creativity on workplaces, to create connection between your colleagues, so that on workplaces they have places where you can play ping pong, where you can be together in a completely different way, because it shifts you into another mode and allows you to go out of the box. And that really recharges you, creates connection, allows you to see yourself in a new light, and you grow. And with that, of course, the organization grows. So my tip for people who are in a community, who are in an organization, or even who are in a family or in a group of friends, is to try to implement these structures, try to play more, trying to use your humor, and you will really see how that not only resolves conflicts, but also allows each member to really grow, which as a consequence allows the whole group to grow. Thank you so much for watching. If you're interested in seeing more content about these topics, then please remember to like and subscribe and share it with anyone who you think can draw value from these videos. And remember to continue playing.